Well, we can't exactly time travel like Doctor Who does, but we can travel through times, and that is the time zones. Now, why do we have different times? Well, basically the main reason is of how the sun shines on the Earth. As the Earth rotates, the sun shines on parts of it, so those parts will need to have daylight times that reflect daylight, while the darker side of the Earth will need times that reflect the night time. Coordinated universal times were set around the world to deal with these kind of issues. And basically, as you travel through each time zone, which usually relates to these longitude lines, which are imaginary lines on the Earth's surface, and as you travel through each time zone, it's about an hour's difference between each one. Some of the time zones are not exactly following straight lines, and that's usually to do with country borders. The world times often refer to Greenwich Mean Time. Now, this was a time that was set in 1675 with the opening of the Royal Observatory building, and it was to help sailors and to refer back to a standard time as they were travelling around the world. So these vertical lines or meridians of longitude, imaginary lines on the Earth, as you go around, you can see the main ones that we're dealing with in terms of time. There's basically 360 degrees as we travel around, and our zero starting point is basically our Greenwich Mean Time, which starts at 0. And we kind of go to one direction, which we go in the positive 180 degrees, and the other direction we count it as negative. So here's the 0 prime meridian that travels through not only through London and Greenwich, it's got some other countries here. And you can see on this that all the countries that, as I go through here, they're on the light side, so the day side of the times. And then over here we've got our dark, our night time. So here's our Greenwich Mean Time, and then to the right of that we have all our positive hour. As we go through each time zone, we add an hour on, and each one as we go around till we get to our 180 degrees right around the other side of the Earth, and then we're in our taking away from our Greenwich Mean Time, so we're subtracting times as we head to the left or to the west of our Greenwich meridian. When we get to the complete opposite side of the Earth, to the Greenwich meridian, we've got what we call the international date line, which is about 180 degrees a longitude. So that line, although it's not exactly straight, depending on little islands and countries that it goes near, and that is where we call what we call the international date line. So that line's really special because when you cross it, you can be the same time but on completely different days as soon as you cross that line. So on the left, here we've got the eastern hemisphere, which is usually from the other direction anyway, and here's our western hemisphere. So you can see our international date line. I think Samoa was one of the last countries to just actually change over from one side to the other. And so you can be on one side of it. If you're heading towards the east, you will lose a day as you cross it. If you're heading toward the west, you gain a day. So basically, it could be when you're over here, it could be 10 a.m. on a Sunday, and then you cross the line and it becomes 10 a.m. on the Monday instantaneously. That's why when you leave Sydney, say at 10 o'clock in the morning on a particular day, you can actually arrive in somewhere like, say, Vancouver at 10 o'clock on the same day, at the same time, even though you've travelled for hours to get to where you're going. Australian times are related to our Greenwich Meridian time by the fact that our Eastern Standard Time, where Sydney is 10 hours ahead of that. So our Central Standard Time, half an hour behind our Eastern Time, is 9.5 hours ahead of the Greenwich Meridian, and our Western Standard Time is 8 hours ahead of Greenwich Meridian time. How we can use this, for example, is that since London is 10 hours behind Sydney, we can work out what time it is now if it was 6 p.m. in Sydney, all we need to do is take 10 hours off. So from 6 p.m. we count back 10 hours and we get to 8 a.m. So it's 8 a.m. in London when it's 6 p.m. in Sydney on the same day. Sometimes we have situations where we have to relate a couple of different times. So, for example, if we had the Socceroos versus Real Madrid at 7 p.m. on Saturday, but the game was being played in Prague, and Matthew wanted to watch the game live in Sydney, he would need to know the time, like the relationship between Sydney and Prague's times. So Sydney is 10 hours ahead of Greenwich Mean Time, while Prague is only 1 hour ahead. So we can say, okay, between Sydney and Prague, there's 9 hours difference. Sydney is further ahead, so we have to add on our 9 hours, and we get to 4 a.m. on Sunday morning is when we would have to be watching the game to see it live from 7 p.m. on Saturday in Prague.